welcome back to Access Anime. I'm Henshin Ikeda, and today I'll be doing a walkthrough and review of Magi Episode 9. Now, if you remember from last episode, we see Alibaba being kidnapped by Morgana. Now, the only reason why Morgana is kidnapping Alibaba is because Aladdin is miserable right now because he didn't get to talk with Alibaba, and Morgana felt it was her duty to bring Alibaba to see Aladdin so they can get things worked out. Now we do see them face to face, they're talking, and we find out a little more information about Alibaba and his friend Kazim. Now apparently Alibaba grew up with Kazim in his childhood, and it was kind of interesting. We see he was actually raised in the slums, but also Alibaba is part of the royal family of Bolbad. He is the true prince of Bolbad, or should I say more or less the bastard child of the king. So he has a couple brothers, or at least one brother I can assume we see, and again they're half brothers, but we don't get to see him in last episode, so we don't really see any of Alibaba's siblings, even if they're half blood related, just pointing that out. But we do find out sadly that his father, the king, does pass away sadly, but mostly because of him in general. He ended up leaving the palace one night, ran into Kazim, and sadly Kazim took advantage of him and kind of asked, well, how did you get in and out of the palace? And he mentions the tunnels, but at the same time he's drunk, so after they say their goodbyes, Alibaba is followed home, and I guess the palace has been ransacked, and sadly it was burnt to the ground, and his father, which was ill and sick in bed, after leaving the kingdom to Alibaba, sadly Alibaba, kind of left to get some air, runs into Kazim, and he gets knocked out. Now sadly after that we find out the kingdom is burnt down, or at least the palace has burnt down, and Alibaba's father is now no longer among the living, so that was kind of sad. But again, moving on past that, we do find the current ruler of Bolbad happens to be married to one of the Ku Empire's princesses. That's right, Alibaba's half-brother is no longer a true king of Bolbad. He's now sided with the Ku Empire, not only by marrying one of the princesses from the Ku Empire, but now he's being swayed by the Ku Empire to produce the currency and whatnot. So now you see Ku Empire currency within Bolbad, which is making their economy horrible. I just thought I'd point that out. Now, toward the end of the episode, we actually see Kazim. He's preparing to actually go after Alibaba, only because he's no longer within, I guess, the slums. So Alibaba is no longer within Kazim's territory or area per se, so he's going after him. He doesn't know what's up, if he's running, if he's been kidnapped. All we know is Kazim is now going after Alibaba, and that's where the episode ends. But again, that was last episode, and this is a new episode, so let's dive right in. And again, I'll hold my final thoughts, my rating at the end of the clip, so stay tuned, but let's dive right in. Now, we open up this episode with Alibaba, actually, and we also find out it's more of a flashback, not exactly where we left off, so it's a flashback in general. But moving on, now this flashback we actually see Alibaba, and he's actually leaving the kingdom of Bolbad, so he's running away. We don't know why, but we can assume it's because his father's no longer living and he's ashamed with what has happened. Now we do find out he was hired by the Oasis military, the Oasis City military, so he has a little military background. So not only is he from a royal family, he also has a military background, and he was also raised on the cities in the slums. Now, as of right now, Alibaba's got an amazing backstory, so I can't wait to see where this is going to go. But moving on, we do see a small cutscene of Sinbad and Jafar listening in to Alibaba, Aladdin, and Morgana through the walls. It's an hilarious scene, that's all I can say, and they hear everything. They know Alibaba's a prince, they know he's also the leader of the Fog Troop, per se. So this is kind of interesting. So now they have the lowdown. But again, that was the opening scene. Moving past that, now we do see Alibaba, and apparently he's returned to Bolbad. This is another flashback, so bear with me. Another flashback. So this is him returning to Bolbad after he beats the dungeon in general. So this is kind of getting a little interesting, but bear with me. He runs into Kazim. So I'm interested why he would run into Kazim all of a sudden, but we don't really know. Kazim just shows up, he runs into him, and he starts talking about everything that's happened. He also mentions how the government is to blame, all because it's all to shit, more or less. You heard me. Their government's to shit, it's going to hell, and they're trying to hide everything in general. We also find out, apparently, Kazim's sister, I always forget her name though, I believe it's Marame. Bear with me if I misspell it or mispronounce it. It's M-A-R-I-A-M. I-A-M? Yeah, that's how you spell it. I'm not even going to try. moving on, we find out his sister is actually dead. She has passed away because of an epidemic, so that's very sad. No wonder why Chasm is no longer cheerful, or at least somewhat happy anymore. He takes stuff very seriously, and he's always looking at the darker side of things per se. But that might just be me. But I do see he gets very gloomy when stuff becomes very serious. But moving on, he does also point out the government has closed off the slums, so the slums are no longer open, and the government's trying to hide the truth of what the slums were, I guess. I don't really know how that worked into his story, but he does point out the government is hiding the slums, hiding what they've been doing. So right now the government of Bolbat's not looking pretty good. In fact, it looks pretty bad in my opinion. Moving on, we do find out a lot more information from Chasm. Now he does ask Alibaba to join the Fog Troop to become their leader. So he's becoming their figurehead. For what reason? Because he's the prince. If they have a prince within Fog Troop, anything they do is alright. So they're not outlaws at all. So that's why Alibaba became their leader. Now, in all fairness, I don't believe that's why he became the leader, why he said yes. Although he does point out he starts believing what Chasm's been saying about the government, so that kind of sways him. So in a way, he's kind of forgetting that Chasm set him up for when his father died, so he kind of already apologized. But at the same time, he's trying to save his kingdom. He's trying to save Bolbat from the current government, since that regime is sending the rest of the government to hell because of what they're hiding. Now, moving on to the next scene, we do kind of do a little flashback with Aladdin, but it's not like a flashback of his past, kind of like deja vu. Now, what I mean by deja vu is what's happening right now between Alibaba and Aladdin. Well, I should say not Alibaba and Aladdin, but Alibaba and Chasm, and what's occurred within the government kind of reminds him of the Kugra clan and Baba in general. So this is very familiar, and he's not confused, but he sees what's happening, and it doesn't look good for Aladdin or Alibaba in general. So he tells Alibaba straight up, the results will be sad if this fails, Alibaba. So whatever you're doing, if this goes bad, goes sour, it's gonna be terrible. It's gonna be a wreck. And I thought it was even funnier. We take into a different scene. Now we do see Aladdin, and he hits Alibaba in the head to try to knock some sense into him. I thought it was a funny scene. It was definitely put in the right area to see it, you know. We needed a little, some laugh, something, you know, because it got too serious, so choked up. And we see Aladdin. He promises Alibaba he will help him with this solution. He will stick by his side. He's his friend. He's not going to go anywhere. But they need to work stuff out. So he's in there for the long run. Now, just when they were about to shake hands, just when they were about to make up, they are attacked. And I was like, what? Yeah, they were just randomly attacked, and it was just perfectly timed, but at the wrong moment. Now we see Chasm, he's attacked, he's got his guards with him, like all of Troop Fog's there, or Fog Troop, my bad. Now we do say Fog Troop there, and they're prepared to attack. Now they have some information that Sinbad is in the hotel, so that's also their target. So not just getting, you know, Alibaba back, but now to kill Sinbad in general. Now we do see Jafar, Sinbad, and Musaru show up, and since they were listening behind the wall, they know everything that's going on, and it's perfect timing yet again. They arrive and they save the day, and we see Sinbad. He's now fighting one of the Fog Troop members called Hassan. Now, I thought this was funny. Hassan's laughing at, you know, Sinbad because he doesn't have any weapons, doesn't have his Dajin on him, but again, no one knows he has Dajin, really. But he uses, it's weird, he doesn't use a single weapon, nothing, he just attacks him head on, and he literally takes the wind out of Hassan, and he defeats him in one blow, literally. And I thought it was kind of a cheap fight, but I still like seeing it. At least now we get to see what Sinbad's really capable of doing. Now moving on past that, we are taken to a different scene. Now we see Sinbad versus Alibaba. Now before I go on any more beyond that, let me explain how we got to that part. Now we do see Alibaba and Chasm, they're running to the rooftop, they're trying to avoid all this confusion, I guess, and they're finally on the rooftop, and we see Musaru. He's now on the rooftop, and we see all these Fog Troop members, and I'm like, so we get to see Musaru. Musaru gets to fight. So this is amazing, because he's from the Dark Continent, like, you know, Morgana, and we know Morgana, she's amazing. She's an amazing fighter. I don't care who you are. I think she could take on Urza. See, I went there. I so went there. She doesn't even have magic, in my opinion. Now, moving on past that, we do see Musaru versus all these Fog Troop, and he takes them out amazingly. I mean, this guy has muscle, he's got armor. He is even stronger than Morgana, and I was like, it did get better. But moving on past that, it gets even better. I'll just point that out. Now we do see Chasm, and he's fighting Sinbad. That's right, Sinbad has now entered the mix. And I thought, you know, Chasm was actually going to win versus Sinbad, but that's not the case. He actually had him, like with his magical powers, he had him in a bind, but somehow Sinbad broke free. He uses his magic abilities. I say magic abilities, I just don't want to clarify that right now, but he uses his abilities and he breaks free, and Chasm's just freaking stunned and he loses. Now that kind of moves, you know, Alibaba to actually do something now. So Alibaba versus Sinbad. So we went from one battle to another battle to another battle. Are you serious? This just gets more amazing. Now again, we see Sinbad versus Alibaba, and you know, it's kind of funny. Sinbad gives Alibaba a way out, says you can run, and he's just very confused. Sinbad is confusing the hell out of Alibaba. I'm just going to put it that way, okay? And eventually, we see Alibaba say, you know, screw it. He calls out his Dajin, Omon, and he, you know, he lights up on fire, and it's amazing. I thought this kid has it all. He's got the edge. He's got a Dajin, and you know, Sinbad, he doesn't have a Dajin on him. He had 7 of them, but he doesn't. He was robbed, so he doesn't have them. And again, this is an intense battle. It is a really intense battle. We see Alibaba, we see Sinbad. Need I say more? Really? But sadly, the ending of this was Alibaba was defeated by Sinbad. I kind of saw this coming, but I didn't want to look, to be honest. But yeah, Sinbad wins. Now, he also points out, Sinbad points out directly to Alibaba, you still can't use your Dajin to its full capability. I'm like, what? Are you mean like the same power that Aladdin has where he can call Hugo out, yet somehow his head isn't fully there, yet he has a full body? Is that what he was getting at? I don't really know, but I'm assuming that's what he meant. I think his Dajin may have a full body form. We just haven't seen it yet. Or maybe there's more power we haven't seen. Well, just putting that out there. Now we are taken to a different scene, and it's a WTF. The biggest WTF in this series. And I mean, wow. I didn't even see this coming. I'm sorry. No, I didn't. Not in a million years did I see this coming. We see Sinbad, and he wants to join the Fog Troop. I was like, what? First you're hunting him down for the government, now you're joining him? I mean, you didn't even lose the fight, you won. You're not, I mean, you're surrounded, but you won. And we just don't understand this. Now, the best reason he gives for wanting to join the Fog Troops is because he wants to fight the government. He sees everyone siding, you know, the people have sided with Alibaba, so he wants to side with Alibaba. And they call BS on that, because that was BS. That's not what he wants to join. No. Everyone doesn't believe that. It's obvious that's not the truth. He doesn't just want to fight the government. Now we also find out he wants to actually stop these abnormalities that are happening around the world. You know, random fights between 2 countries, a lot of grief happening, so he wants to fight that instead. So that's more believable. Alibaba kind of believes it, but he's getting there. Now we do find out Chasm still does not believe. He calls BS. He's like, I don't believe this. And Jafar out of nowhere takes him down. He's like, don't ever say anything bad about Sinbad. I'm like, whoa. Now I know he had a dark side, and you hear Musaru and Morgana kind of talking, and Musaru kind of points out, yeah, he gets like that sometimes. He's got this dark side, but only some of the time. And again, I thought that was funny. But again, Jafar is very loyal with Sinbad. I never thought that. I mean, I thought he was just had a dark side. I thought he was going to take Sinbad over, take his Dajin, take some power for himself. No, he actually protected Sinbad and his well, it's his friend. He's not just his like master, I guess, but it's his friend. Sinbad's his friend, so he stuck up for him. But moving on, I don't want to digress any more than I have to. Now we do find out Sinbad points out an interesting fact he wants Alibaba to do. Now he wants Alibaba to go with him to the palace. Now the only reason why he wants them to go to the palace is so he can talk to the present Bulbad King about this present situation. Now we hear Sinbad actually tell Alibaba that he'll speak up for them, that he's also the prince, because he was good friends with the original king, the old king that passed away, which was Alibaba's father. He said he'd speak up for him, that he'd recognize him as the prince. I mean, he is a high king after all. And that kind of sways him just a little bit, enough for him to agree to go to the palace. Now we are taken to a different scene. Throughout the whole Bulbad kingdom, or at least the city presently, we see all these little forms on all these walls saying, go to the palace, Alibaba the miracle man, you know, miracle man Alibaba is the prince, you know, show your support. So now everyone throughout Bulbad knows Alibaba is not only the leader of Fog Troop, but he's also the prince. So I don't know who sent these papers up, but now you have all the people showing up at the palace outside. Now we are taken to a different scene in general, and it's kind of interesting. And I thought it was definitely interesting where we see Alibaba with Sinbad, and they're approaching, you know, the 23rd king of Bolbad, which is his half brother, and they're talking, and they're trying to talk about the present state of the government, you know, of Bolbad, and how to make it better. And this king does not want to hear anything. He doesn't want to hear anything at all. He's ignoring everything. He's being arrogant. He's telling Alibaba, I don't even recognize you as my brother. To me, you're just someone that was raised as, you know, from the slums. You're not even royalty in my eyes. And he was brushing him off and said, get away from me. And you know what was the most amazing part? Alibaba turns around and says, screw you. Screw you. And I was like, took the words right out of my mouth. He starts going after this guy. But again, this king is ignoring everything, sadly, and out of nowhere he mentions, oh, Banker's appeared. So we see a new character, but he's not really introduced, but all of a sudden it caught his attention, so I'm interested to see who this new character is. Now moving on, we do see Aladdin and Morgana. They're outside with the crowd, and they're talking, and we see Aladdin actually see something that looks familiar, or at least he sees black butterflies around the sky. He looks like a Magi, I'm just pointing that out, he probably is. But he has all these black butterflies around him, and he's approaching the palace. And again, that's where the episode ends. Final thoughts? Is this guy a Magi? I don't know. I believe he is. He had black butterflies. I think he's a darker Magi, but we don't know why he's at the palace. What's his purpose, and why is he going? Keep getting closer to the palace. Again, we don't know. Then moving on past that, is Sinbad ever going to get his 7 Dajin back? I just have to point that out. I'm not sure, but I hope he does, because I can't wait to see all 7 of his Dajin. Now moving on past that, Chasm. I know you're not really the leader anymore, because you kind of picked Alibaba to be the leader as a figurehead, so you guys wouldn't be called outlaws. But what's going to happen if Alibaba's plan works and the government changes? Are you going to still become outlaws, or are you going to join the government in the military? What's going to happen? Or is this just another far cry, like another outcry that you're going to do even worse, like you're going to cause more havoc throughout the kingdom just because your friend's the king or the government's changed? We don't know. I'm just very curious to see where this is going to go. And also, the current Bolbad king, I hope you get what's coming to you, you SOB. That's all I have to say to you, buddy. I hope Alibaba sticks it to you. I hope you lose your head. I hope you get tossed off the throne. I have no idea what your connection with the Ku Empire is, other than you married one of their princesses, but you have it coming, buddy. But again, that ends it for my final thoughts. As per my rating, 4 out of 5. Are you serious? I'm giving this a solid 4 out of 5. Now, a couple of the reasons why I'm giving this a 4 out of 5 instead of a 3.5 out of 5. Well, I did see a little drama or a little emotional flair in this episode, mostly with Alibaba and Aladdin. I could definitely see it there. Not so much with Sinbad and Chasm though. I wasn't really feeling it. It was more or less, that's what made the episode interesting, to see Sinbad turn his situation around and join the opposing team. That definitely spoke to me. So that was points in my book. And again, the fights were okay in the most part, but not the best they could have been. But definitely okay. I'm just going to go with that for now because it wasn't drawn out, which kind of pissed me off. But it was enough to quench my thirst per se. But again, final rating, 4 out of 5. And again, that ends it for my walkthrough and review with Magi episode 9. But again, that ends it for now. Definitely comment down below, thumbs up, thumbs down, subscribe above. Let me know what you thought of this episode. Let me know what you think's going to happen in the next episode. And definitely check me out on Twitter and follow me if you like. Now I have one more walkthrough and review to do, probably in another hour, so definitely stay tuned. But I gotta go, guys, and before I go, I gotta say it. Can't stop the access, but you can watch the feed. I'll see you later, guys.